Good evening, America, and welcome to your Monday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you back in Washington, D.C. after a week in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention. Lots of headlines that happened over the weekend. We had you covered all weekend long here at Real America's Voice. Yep, Joe Biden is out. Kamala Harris is speeding towards taking the Democratic nomination, locking up a lot of support today. Meanwhile, a growing number of Republicans are asking the question, if Joe Biden isn't well enough to be campaigning and to run for president, even though he got 14 million votes, maybe he shouldn't be president. J.D. Vance and Senator Eric Schmitt today both asked the cabinet and Kamala Harris to begin invoking the 25th Amendment and possibly remove Joe Biden from being president. Let's turn to my amazing co-host, Amanda Head. Amanda, a lot of drama going on in Washington. Some of the craziest 10 days in politics I've ever seen in my life.
My goodness, I made the mistake of thinking that we might have like a 24-hour breather after the RNC.
Not happening.
How dumb was I? Not at all. Yeah, this story is absolutely incredible. And there are a lot of people out there asking, where is Joe Biden?
Yep.
Congresswoman Lauren Boebert had asked for some type of
proof of life,
liveliness check at, proof of life at 5 p.m., which has come and gone as of, what time is it now, 3? As of an hour ago. So a lot of questions surrounding that. But, John, there are also a lot of questions surrounding what took place on July 13th, who all was connected, even if there was one shooter. Senator Ron Johnson brought up the prospect that there could possibly be more than one of those in that contentious hearing up on Capitol Hill with the United States Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle. But the FBI is obviously taking their bite at the apple, and they were able to get into his phone. I don't know what 20-year-old out there has almost no social media presence, but does have 3 encrypted apps on their phone originating in 3 different countries. Come on now. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so you're right. Kim Cheadle gave us hardly anything at the hearing today. In fact, her performance was so bad that Jamie Raskin, the Democrat, joined the chairman, James Comer. They normally fight, right? They both agreed that she should step down after her performance at the hearing today. But meanwhile, behind closed doors, the FBI has been providing Congress regular updates, and there's some new explosive information that we can confirm for you today. Multiple sources confirm that the FBI is zeroed in on the primary cell phone that they found on the shooter's body the day he was taken out by a sniper after he shot at President Trump. What does that phone show? Well, first, he had 3 separate encrypted apps. The FBI has not cracked those apps yet, but one was tied to Netherlands, one was tied to Brussels, one was tied to Germany, the third was tied to New Zealand. That's becoming a major focus. What's a 20-year-old doing with 3 foreign encryption apps on his phone? The second thing they found, a picture of the Michigan school shooter from the Oxford, Michigan high school shooting back in 2021. That's become an important piece of evidence. The FBI also gave Congress what Kim Cheadle wouldn't give them today, a pretty clear timeline. According to the FBI's investigation, the FBI knew in about 20 minutes before President Trump was shot at that there was a suspicious person. They were alerted by the state police in Pennsylvania. They began looking for him. 1 minute before the shooting, the sniper was told to look at the nest where the shooter had taken up space and was about to shoot at the president. That timeline, very different from what we've been getting from the Secret Service, which is crickets. That's among some of the things that the FBI has told Congress in the last few days. Amanda, we have the whole story up at justthenews.com. Now, we talked about J.D. Vance a second ago. In a few minutes, we're going to go live because J.D. Vance has returned to his hometown. He's giving his first speech back in his home state of Ohio after securing the vice presidential nomination. Pretty big moment, Amanda, right?
Yeah, as you and I discussed earlier, I think that he is settling into the role. I think probably, with the last notice or the very late notice that he got that he was going to be the number 2 on the ticket, it was probably a very frazzling moment for everyone around him. But he has settled in, and I think he's going to be very comfortable up there outlining his support for President Trump's America First agenda and the reason that President Trump chose him, because he perfectly aligns with those ideals. And look, a lot of people have brought up his age. He's young. He is a great person to take that baton in an Olympics reference. Olympics start in a few days, right? Take the baton and carry on the America First agenda. So I'm looking very forward to hearing what he's going to have to say.
I think we have our great colleague, Brian Glenn, outside the high school where J.D. Vance once went to school. He's going to be speaking. Brian, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, guys. I am in front of Middletown High School here in Middletown, Ohio. Now, this is where he attended high school in this community, and this is kind of where his friends, some of his family, his colleagues, even some teachers met with him earlier today as he spoke around 2 o'clock here local time for about 40 minutes. And today's speech, John and Amanda, it was a combination of, yes, talking points on the America First policy, obviously all the Make America First agenda, but he sprinkled in a lot of personality, a lot of personal stories, things that you and I probably have never heard before. Yes, he talked about donuts, he talked about bologna sandwiches, he also talked about the love for this community and the struggles that people here in Ohio have. But, my biggest question right now, John and Amanda, it's home of the middies. I want to know what the heck is a middy.
Yeah, we're going to have to put the investigative team on that, Brian. Yeah.
Yes, we do. But it was a unique speech because he did share the moment whenever President Trump called him to tell him that he was going to be the vice president nominee. So this is the side of him, guys, that I have not seen before. And the more I hear from J.D. Vance, the more I like him.
Yeah, now tell us what he's going to be doing in just a few minutes. He's going to be speaking again, right?
Yeah, he's taking the stage there. Once again, he's on this, this is second of 3 stops, I believe, today.
Wow.
Ohio and Virginia. So, yeah, he's a busy guy. I guess you got your own plane now. You can pop across the country and do this at will. But this is, once again, this is a get to know J.D. Vance is really what I'm calling these speeches, because it's very much a personal side of him, not just policy points, but more of a personal angle of his life and his struggles growing up. And, the hillbilly elegy that I've yet to read, and I'm going to read it, he talks about the struggles that he had growing up. And really, the way I look at this, guys, this is Middletown, Ohio. But there are hundreds of Middletowns, USA, across this country. And I think it's a great thing to think about that. He represents a lot of people, John.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And he has that connectivity. And playing in Virginia tonight, that's supposed to be a blue state. Wait, no, it's purple. Maybe it's even red. That's a big, bold move in his first week to go into one of the states that I think the Democrats were thinking, well, that might be in our column a few months ago. Yeah.
Well, of course, we were there about, 3 weeks ago with Glenn Youngkin there, right. And the Chesapeake area, big attendance, huge attendance, actually. A lot of people say that Virginia's in play. We'll see. It doesn't hurt to send J.D. Vance there to connect with the voters. And I said this, and Amanda, John, I want to get your thoughts on this. I think he really connects with the independent voter or the moderate Democrat that's not really happy what's going on in the DNC, that might be able to relate to this hard-working blue-collar guy.
Yeah. That's a great point.
I think that's absolutely right. And I love that this is highlighting kind of the personal side of him. And, someone who stands by his side and apparently has stood by his side every step of the way throughout their marriage, his wife, Usha. Has she been there as well?
I did not see her today. Perhaps he might join him at a later stop, but I did not see her today.
Yeah. One of my favorite.
And if I can add real quickly, if people were wondering about the security, what this would look like, real quick, I'll give you 30 seconds. I saw snipers on the roof. I saw military on the ground. I saw police on the ground everywhere. I mean, up and down the street coming into the school. So the security here was widespread. So I'm assuming that maybe they thought they had to ramp up their game a little bit in terms of this campaign rally. But as we saw on Capitol Hill earlier today, we got no information out of that woman at all, other than, hang on guys, breaking news, it's only been 9 days, I need more time.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And a report's coming out in 60 days, even though the election's only, 105, 106. Yeah. But we're good. It's fine. We'll just wait 2 months.
Yeah.
Brian, I wanted to ask you quickly before I think JD's going to sneak out on stage. I know that you are always talking to the American people. You're always flying here, there, and yonder across this country. For the answers that were given this morning in that hearing, was any of it satisfactory to anyone that you've spoken to? And what else do they want to know?
No, it's not, because we have very common sense questions, and we should have very common sense answers. We should have answers. Look, I can get on YouTube, and anybody in this parking lot can get on YouTube, and in 5 minutes we can come up come up with more information from the general public than what the Secret Service has tried to uncover in 9 days. So people are frustrated. They don't trust the government at all, even up to this point. Now they no longer trust the leadership in the Secret Service. And let me be clear about that. That's the leadership. This is not the people that are immediately around President Trump and VP POTUS at all. Let's perfect clear. They've got a great team around them. This is the lack of leadership the lack of leadership that she's provided for this organization.
Brian, you were there that night when the shooting occurred, knowing what we've now learned from either the spokesman of the Secret Service, who's changed his story a few times, or from congressional members, clearly not from Kim Cheadle. We clearly knew there was a lack of resources, that there had been requests from the Trump campaign or the Trump security detail. When you think of that moment, you're standing there, would you ever think 10 days later you'd be finding out the Secret Service knew they didn't have enough bodies to do security?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that they have a $3.8 billion budget. Yeah. They employ 8,000 people in the Secret Service, but for some reason, I don't know, the most iconic political figure in world history, the most controversial figure in world history, most beloved American figure, and politically speaking, doesn't have adequate security. Go figure.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher. Yeah. Just crazy.
Brian, I want to ask the golden question of the hour. Where is Joe Biden? Have you got any intel there on the ground? Any information about where he is, how he's doing?
No, and I think that is a great question. I mean, just from a wellness standpoint from it, John, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. Amanda, you've been doing this for a long time. Would you think that an important announcement like that would just be pushed out as some tweet or some statement from somebody's desk? Where's the press conference? Where's the people that's been by his side ever since for 40 plus years in public service? Where are these people standing behind a podium celebrating this man's life and the sacrifice he's given to serve his country? And I'm saying that very loosely. But where is he? And if he does have COVID, I just saw a picture on Twitter just a few minutes ago when President Trump had COVID. Guess what? He was still in the Oval Office working. There was proof that he was working. I want proof at this point that he's even alive. God bless him. I hope he is. But that is, if I'm the Democrats right now, I don't even know what's going on in your party. You can't even find the leader, the president. The leader of your party is MIA, and the public wants answers.
Yeah, it's stunning. For such a momentous decision, you let 14.5 million people vote for you. Yeah. And then you decide, I don't want to be the guy anymore. You drop out and you don't even come out and explain yourself. You put a statement out on a Sunday afternoon, and it was like a statement if there was a world leaders meeting. There was nothing that matched the magnitude of what Joe Biden had just done and what the party elders did during this 2-week period. Brian, one of the things, and Amanda, I wanted you both to weigh in on this because we remember the days of Tammany Hall where Democrats made their decision behind closed doors and voters didn't matter. This past few days felt like that era had just returned in the 21st century. How much does that influence voters going into Election Day knowing that, hey, your votes were thrown out, now we're going to pick someone behind closed doors?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go ahead and jump on that if I may. I think it's a big deal, and I think people might stay home. They might be so disenfranchised with the Democrats right now. They might be so pissed off. They're like, you know what? If we don't have a voice, then I'm staying home, which is good. Stay home. But J.D. Vance had a message today on stage earlier that invites everyone to come over. So if you're a Democrat right now and you're watching us, thanks for watching Real America's Voice. We appreciate it. But more importantly, we have an open tent for everyone. Every American can come to our tent, and we do things the right way here. We do things diplomatically. We elect our leaders here in this party. And if you're a Democrat, you've got to be. It's not America over there. It's not America at all. It feels like a third world country.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Brian, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Pay some bills. We'll be right back. We'll be having J.D. Vance live in just a few minutes.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. We are so delighted that you have joined us, and we are awaiting Senator J.D. Vance to take the stage. He is giving his, I believe, second of 3 speeches today. Maybe this is his last of 3, but he has been hitting the road to speak to the American voters and just let them know a little bit more about who he is. And I think a lot of people feel like they need that at this point. and he is delivering. John, I want to ask you, this was something, I learned a few interesting things recently, and I suppose that one of these I knew, I just didn't actually put it together, that this will be the first presidential election without a Clinton, a Bush, or a Biden. So that seems historic, especially for my generation who has only known those types of elections since 1976, I think the date is. And and then another thing, and there are a number of interesting aspects to this election. Joe Biden dropping out is just, it seems to me that this is beyond something that you would ever expect to happen in politics. John, as Brian said, you've been doing this a long time. And what does it feel like for you to be watching all of this, knowing the scope of your reporting over these years?
Yeah, it's been a crazy 2 weeks, and I think actually 3 weeks going back to the debate. The debate was the moment where the media and their Democratic allies got exposed. The emperor had no clothes anymore. And what we've all known about Joe Biden for a couple of years, that he was starting to diminish intellectually, what Robert Hur warned us last fall. Suddenly the Democrats ended, oh, surprise, oh my God, we had no idea, we got to get rid of him. It really is a troubling 3 weeks. And then you throw in the attempted assassination on Donald Trump, the security failures of the Secret Service, which are incredibly glaring. In fact, so glaring that I think Kim Cheadle managed to do something no one else in history has been able to do, get James Comer and Jamie Raskin, two bitter rivals on the Oversight Committee, to agree on something. They signed a letter together saying, it's time for you to go, Ms. Cheadle, get out of there.
John, to see it in black and white, their signatures next to each other.
I thought it was an Onion headline when I first saw it. I'm like, wait a second. Like, oh my God, that's a real letter. It really happened. Yep. And then, to watch the slow bleed of just trying to force Joe Biden off stage without a process, and without without really considering the 14.5 million Americans that went to the polls and picked their nominee. And Joe Biden just bails on them because Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi basically strong-armed him out. Really extraordinary. And now there's one last incredible drama left, Amanda. And I saw J.D. Vance. We're going to be watching him in a speech in a second. But in his interview tonight with Fox News, he sits down with Donald Trump and Fox News at the same time. And he says he thinks Kamala Harris has to begin the 25th Amendment. He's not the only one suggesting that. Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri earlier today sent a letter asking Vice President Kamala Harris, saying, listen, if he's not well enough to run after getting 14 million votes, then he's not well enough to be president. Get him out of there.
Right.
All that's going on. And, if we get the Robert Hur transcript, which we might now, there's no reason for the Attorney General to keep fighting that, we might find out that Robert Hur thought the same thing and why he thought it. There's still one more chapter of Joe Biden, which is, can he actually last until November, or will he be forced out by the 25th Amendment? This is crazy stuff.
Yeah. And, for those 14.5 million people who were such diehard Joe Biden fans that they actually showed up for the primaries, I can imagine that they're, if they haven't been paying attention, then they probably are feeling a little bit hoodwinked by this. Are we seeing the senator walk out there? My eyesight is pretty bad. I can't see the monitor. No, that's not him. Okay, good. But it's not just this election cycle, John. This is the third election cycle in a row, dating back to 2016 with Bernie Sanders, and then 2020 when they kind of intentionally diluted the vote such that Joe Biden would be the one to rise to the top. And then this time around, Democrat Party elite saying, we know what's best for you. Trust us, guys. He's just going to step away, and we're just going to fill him with somebody. Trust us. Don't worry about what's happening behind the curtain. We'll take care of it.
Yeah. Well, they said that about Russia collusion, right? Trust us. It's true.
Right.
What did Adam Schiff once say? You just have to believe. Don't believe your eyes. Believe us. Right. It's just an amazing sense of big government elitism, big media elitism, how this played out. And I thought Brian hit something very important. The way it rolled out, too, was sort of like an afterthought announcement. Like, the president doesn't need to explain himself on national TV. He doesn't even need to look you in the eye. We're just going to put out a tweet. And, that's it. It's over.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
You don't want to tell people directly. You just want to throw out a tweet that let's face it, probably a staffer posted it. Who even knows? And it's not even on presidential letterhead. That's really weird to me.
It's really remarkable. And I think we're going to see some more remarkable things. Now, in the meanwhile, very quickly, Kamala Harris is trying to sew up the nomination without ever having to get a vote herself. She's lining up support and just kind of solidifying it that way. But the American public, Amanda, are going to get to know this woman in a way they haven't gotten to know her in the past, right? They're going to be able, because now she is the top name on the ticket, or going to be the top name on the ticket if everything stands as expected. Everything she did as a leader. And tomorrow morning, we're going to bring people back to the 2 prior times that Kamala Harris actually led something in government, when she was the district attorney in San Francisco and the California attorney general. And you're going to see some pretty shocking things. When she was chosen to lead, usually failure and scandal followed. And I think that that's something that Americans have to come and be reconciled with, which is, hey, Kamala Harris did lead some government offices. Things didn't go so well under her leadership. We also know from her time in the vice president's office, there's been great upheaval there. A lot of people angry and leaving and feeling abused in that office. The American people haven't had to ask these questions of Kamala Harris because they always had Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. This is going to be a difficult vetting for a person whose record in government is less than stellar when you start to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine the American people right now, with the news cycle as it is, are just absolutely reeling, not knowing where Joe Biden is. I know people like to use the example of Weekend at Bernie's. I would like to use a fresher example. You remember that Brazilian woman a few months ago who wheeled in her dead uncle to co-sign a loan for her?
Right.
It feels like there is so much that is being hidden from the American people. And it also feels like, I mean, it seems like things are coming apart at the seams, because Joe Biden says he's not running for re-election. Fine, it's historic, it's bizarre in this news cycle, but it has happened. But then you consider the fact that you have Israeli Prime Minister touching down stateside here in the United States. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, is not there. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, is not there. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is not there. No one is there to greet them. It's hardly a diplomatic welcome or entrance for them. And I think that people just feel like the wheels are coming off this thing.
Well, we don't look like America. We look like a second-rate nation with some of these things. You get your most important ally in the Middle East, and you're not even greeting him at the airport. Here's something I think you're going to learn in the next couple of days with Joe Biden fading into the background and Kamala Harris moving in. She's not nearly as friendly to Israel as Donald Trump. I think she's going to be more tolerant of the Palestinian criticism of Israel, less supportive. That's going to be a dynamic that people are looking to watch out for. Now, I mentioned earlier that, James Comer and Jamie Raskin agreeing on something. That would be pretty extraordinary. I got another one for you we dug up today. Can you believe Kamala Harris and Donald Trump agree on election integrity? Ready for this?
I am.
Kamala Harris in 2019 actually said it was time to go back to paper ballots because you couldn't trust electronic voting. How about that?
Hot dog.
She was for it before her party was against it. How about that? So that's another one of the things that I think when you start to see Kamala Harris's record and the things she said and all these interviews that before no one paid attention to, her record is going to be maddening to liberals. It's going to be maddening to conservatives. It's going to be maddening to conservative independents or common sense independents in the middle. And she just hasn't had this national attention to her. It's going to be a difficult few weeks when people really learn what type of leader and what sort of positions she staked out over time.
Yeah, and a lot of people say that if you move Kamala Harris into that #1 spot, then maybe black support for the ticket might inch back up again. But let me tell you, judging by her record here in California, black men in particular are no fans of Kamala Harris. And, you look at her record here in California, you look at the speed at which she had to bow out of the of the nomination race back in 2020. She's just not popular. And maybe she's the best case scenario for Democrats, considering Joe Biden is officially out.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's much better than Joe Biden. And on foreign policy, oh my goodness, John, her on foreign policy and the economy, this is something I would look forward to, though. Bidenomics obviously was terrible.
Right.
So what comes behind Bidenomics? Kamalamics. So I'm looking forward to her trying to spin how Kamalamics is going to be better for the American people. I'm also looking forward to hearing her say Kamalamics and not cackle off the stage.
Yeah, listen, that's another problem. Her giggle and her awkward moments, her repeating herself sometimes. She does that a lot. It's just all of her flaws, all of her insecurities, all of her previously kind of positions that didn't get taken seriously. Now everybody's going to be vetting those in and out. It's going to be a pretty a vigorous moment. And I think the American people are going to say, well, wait a second. Not only does she have all that baggage, but hey, the two eyes that we were mad about Joe Biden, immigration and inflation, she was part of that too. She was selling us on the Bidenomics. She was selling us on the border. Oh, wait, she was the border czar. She was in charge of it. An amazing thing came out this morning. I think it was on News Nation. They said that they had talked to both border chiefs who had served under President Biden, and neither one of them said they had ever heard from Kamala Harris, even though she was put in charge of the policy. If you're not talking to the border chiefs on the front line, you're not in charge. You're not doing your job. Another element that people are going to say, well, wait a second. We put her in charge of one thing under Joe Biden, and she didn't deliver even on that. I think that she's going to own all of Biden's bad policies, plus her own sort of past failures as a leader. I think it's going to be a difficult run for her. I really do.
I feel the same way about Kamala Harris as I do about kickers on football teams. You had one job. You had one job,
Yeah.
and you missed. I mean, and she didn't even try. The fact that she didn't even reach out to the officials who could have given
crazy,
her the
isn't it?
most pertinent information, actionable information, the fact that she didn't even reach out. I mean, that signals to me that she never had any intention of doing the job. And it signals to me that Joe Biden also never had any intention of her doing the job, because you look at their policies on immigration.
Yeah, no, it's pretty clear. Hey, we got something fun. Now that J.D. Vance has been out and about the last few days, starting with his extraordinary speech at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, and then his first few times on the trail with Donald Trump on Saturday, today out in Ohio and Virginia, we have a sizzle reel of just how you can get to know J.D. Vance. Take a look at this. It's pretty fun stuff.
This is Donald Trump posting on True Social. I have decided that the person best suited to assume the position of Vice President of the United States is Senator J.D. Vance of the great state of Ohio.
I have absolutely got to thank Donald J. Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in southwestern Ohio. I was raised by my mama and papaw, who came from southeastern Kentucky, coal country. My story is the story of the American dream. I've been so blessed to have such a good and charmed and blessed life. Joe Biden has thrown open the southern border. 20 million illegal aliens that are in this country that have no business being here. They are constantly trying to fight the next war because the last one was such a disaster. China doesn't care how tough we talk. They care about how strong we are. Stop sending our bullets to the Ukrainians. We need them right here at home for our own Marines, our own soldiers, and our own troops. If you're going to come to this country, you got to come through the proper channels. And if you didn't come through the proper channels, you got to get the hell out and go back in line and start again. We have got to stop sending American boys and girls to fight every stupid conflict in the world. We are not the world's policemen. We got to stop losing our manufacturing jobs to countries that hate us. We got to build more stuff in America. We need people who are not stabbing the next president in the back. We need people who are supporting the agenda, fighting for the agenda, not fighting against it when the cameras are off.
We actually need to do the American people's business. We need to stop kicking the can down the road, do some real legislation, and unfortunately, the Senate's just doing way too little of that.
The reason that I love this country is because the country was so good to me. The people who are here, supporting me, the people who are always there for me, everybody from, public school teachers who took an interest in me, to the Marine Corps drill instructors who provided needed discipline. This country, ladies and gentlemen, is a great place, and it was an especially great place to a kid like me. And for that reason, I believe it's time to step up, it's time to fight for it, and ladies and gentlemen, it is time to save this country and do it in the right way.
Amanda, one of the things that reminds me, J.D. Vance is a very smooth public speaker. He's very articulate. He's very easy. He doesn't halt. And, when you look at Kamala Harris over the years, she has that many repetitive lines. She's got the giggle. She sometimes is halting and loses her train of thought, kind of like Joe Biden, though not as bad. She's going to be a stark contrast when they're on stage in a debate.
Yeah. What has been? What has been? What has been? How many times is she going to rephrase that sentence? I think it is going to be a stark difference between the two of them, and obviously with her presumably moving into the #1 spot. I was really looking forward to seeing them debate, though. I gotta say, that was something that I feel like the American people deserved to see. But John, on my podcast earlier today, I had former Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron on, and he was talking about the possibility of Kentucky's Governor Andy Beshear moving into the VP spot behind Kamala Harris. And, he has a similar situation to, we spoke to Senator Marsha Blackburn last week at the RNC, and the man who she ran against, Phil Bredesen, same type thing. He claimed to be a moderate on the campaign trail. That was his campaign. He ran on being a moderate Democrat in a red state. And it's the same thing with Andy Beshear. He said, make no mistake, that man is absolutely no moderate, and he is only going to add to the intensity of the radical nature of that ticket.
Yeah, pretty important thing to. We're going to go back to Brian Glenn. He's out in Ohio, where J.D. Vance has already spoken once. Brian, when you look at that sizzle reel, you get a sense of the J.D. Vance that is so smooth on the trail. Obviously, Donald Trump very comfortable on his feet. Kamala Harris, and people probably haven't watched that closely, but her style as a speaker, very choppy, sometimes giddy, sometimes awkward. Either one of those men against Kamala Harris is going to look a little bit different, aren't they?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, John, that J.D. Vance said earlier today that he was actually looking forward to debating her on the stage, and now that she stepped up to, he said, I was looking forward to that debate, which we all were as well. But what does the debate look like between Trump and Kamala? That you guys talked about that earlier. That's great television. That's must-see TV there, because remind you, she's the border czar, the one that was in charge of the border there, and she ran down to El Paso, which is hundreds of miles away from the actual problem. I was looking forward to that that debate as well. You talked about J.D. Vance's style. He has a great, it's almost like a very genuine way of getting a message across. He does pause. There were moments, a dozen moments probably in that room behind me, where people would shout something out and he would respond to them. Yeah. And there might be a little bit of a dialogue going between JD and somebody in the audience. That's who he is. It's not this regimented, kind of robotic speech that you hear a lot often. I'm not talking about Trump. I'm just talking in politics in general. It is a very genuine, I'm up here, get to know me. Matter of fact, we were at the first press conference he did after the nomination. And he told everybody, he said, hey, I'm not up here. You know what I stand for. I want to meet you. And he spoke for about 10 minutes and then got off the stage and talked to every single person in that room. That's who that man is. Yeah. And I think that we got a glimpse of that today.
Yeah, that's really great.
Brian, some people have made some comparisons between Mike Pence and J.D. Vance in that they both are a bit more measured than President Trump is. President Trump gets out there and he, barrels through speeches, and he's aggressive, and they have made the comparison that Mike Pence and J.D. Vance are similar to that extent. But I've seen a different side of J.D. Vance since he has become the VP nominee, and maybe a little bit before that when he was still vying for it. And it seems that he has a very bright personality, something that is closer to Donald Trump than it is Mike Pence.
Oh, for sure. He has a sense of humor. He's open about it. He said some kind of funny things today already. But yeah, it's a different personality than Mike Pence. Mike Pence is like milquetoast compared to J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is fun. I like his youthfulness. I think a lot of young people can identify with that. A lot of young parents can identify with that. I like his story. I like the way he laughs. He has a very genuine laugh. He's not afraid to laugh. He's not afraid to kind of get off script. And I think that's important to note. That, of course, President Trump loves to go off the script. I mean, that's actually the best stuff we get when he goes off the teleprompter. But J.D. Vance is the same way. Matter of fact, he poked fun at it at one point and said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and jump off this teleprompter. And he went into a story. And I think that's what we want to hear more about. We want to hear more of that and less of talking points that are just repetitive.
Brian, there's one other interesting contrast. You know, J.D. Vance obviously grew up in the school of hard knocks of small town, middle America. Benjamin became a Marine, served in the military, then, you know, got on his way to college, Yale Law School, and all the success, Hillbilly Elegy. Funny thing, but Kamala Harris kind of had a privileged upbringing, sort of a little bit more silver spoon upbringing. That contrast is probably going to get drawn out on the campaign as well, which, if you're one of those blue collar or hardworking Americans, that's going to be a tough one for you to understand that J.D. Vance is much more closer to your experience than Kamala Harris was.
Well, I'll add on to that. It's a great observation. He gave an example today how he met a group of African American voters earlier, and they said, "Look, we identify more with you than anyone in politics because we've been in your shoes, and we are still." From, you know, to a certain degree in the same shoes they were years ago. So he does identify with a lot of hardworking people that are just trying to make it in this world by the blessings of God. He was able to go to law school, go to the military, go to law school, and obviously start, you know, a good business owner, and then a great career in politics, no doubt. But I think that he does relate to a great deal with those that are struggling in this country right now.
Yeah. Really pretty remarkable.
Brian, I want to ask you, you know, I think back to 2016 and Hillary Clinton at the top of her ticket. There were so many people out there who really cared about the fact that this was, you know, the first female nominee for president. And it was the same thing with Barack Obama, the first black nominee, or the first black president. Oh, we have him coming out. Here's the Senator J.D. Vance, now the VP on the ticket with President Trump.
Why don't we liberate these United States? We're the ones who need it worst. Let the rest of the world help us for change, and let's rebuild America first. Our highways and bridges are falling apart. Who's blessed? Who has been cursed? There's things to be done all over the world.
Hello, Virginia. It is great to be in Radford. Wow. I love you guys too. I grew up in a place a lot like this one called Middletown, Ohio. And that's where I learned the values of loyalty, family, duty, and honor. And that's where I decided to enlist in the United States Marine Corps when I graduated from high school in 2003. Now, it's also where I learned that if you grew up poor, come from a chaotic family, and get D's and F's in English, you can still, by the grace of God, write a best-selling book and become the nominee to be your next Vice President of the United States of America. Now, my friends, I want to say I make a simple pledge. President Trump and I make a simple pledge that we will pour out every last drop of sweat, we will work our tails off, and we will make America great again, and we're going to do it together. Now, we got to talk about the news of the day here, right? I was swimming with my kids yesterday, and my wife told me that Joe Biden had decided to withdraw from the presidential race. Now, see, you guys are excited about that. I don't know. I was looking forward to debating Kamala Harris, actually. So to the Democrats who are watching, please find some way to make Kamala vice president. I was promised a debate with Kamala Harris, and that's what I plan to get. Now, history will remember Joe Biden as not just a quitter, which he is, but one of the worst presidents in the United States of America. But my friends, Kamala Harris is 1,000,000 times worse, and everybody knows it. She signed up for every single one of Joe Biden's failures, and she lied about his mental capacity to serve as president. Our country has been saddled for 3.5 years with a president who cannot do the job. And that is all because Kamala Harris and the rest of the Democrats lied about his ability to be our president. I think we ought to kick them all out come November and replace them with some people who care about this country. Now, remember this. Let's talk about some of those substantive failures. Kamala Harris is America's border czar. And how's our border doing, ladies and gentlemen? She hasn't talked to the chief of Border Patrol a single time in her entire tenure as border czar. Remember, on her very first day in office, she and Biden suspended deportations. They stopped construction of the border wall, and they re-implemented catch and release. The border crisis is a Kamala Harris crisis. Let's not let her ever forget. Let's never stop reminding her of that fact, and let's never stop reminding people the fact that when President Trump was president, we had a secure border and we put our citizens first. Now, it doesn't stop there. Harris is actually even more extreme than Biden, even though that's hard to believe. She wants to totally decriminalize illegal immigration. Well, Kamala, if you stop making it a crime to come into this country illegally, you're just going to invite more and more illegal aliens, and we know that communities like Radford and Middletown, we're the ones who suffer the consequences. Now, I know this area has been affected by a lot of stupid trade deals, a lot of deals that have shipped good American manufacturing jobs overseas. Well, Biden supported NAFTA back in 1994, but Kamala Harris voted to keep NAFTA again and again, even after it was obvious that it was a disaster for our people. I agree. She voted to eliminate the filibuster and pass the Green New Scam, destroying energy jobs in Virginia and Pennsylvania and driving up the cost of goods. That's why we've got an affordability crisis in this country, my friends, because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they'd rather buy oil and gas from tin-pot dictators all over the world. I say they should buy it right here from American workers and from Americans who are... It's simple. Drill, baby, drill. It's not that complicated. We've got it right here. Our own workers want to get it out of the ground. Why don't we just let them? It'll make our country stronger. We all know that's the case. You know, it gets even worse. She supported abolishing ICE and wanted to defund the police. Even Joe Biden never went so far as to say he wanted to defund the police. Now, of course, he supported all these policies because him or somebody else, we don't know who's been in charge of this country the last 3.5 years, but Joe Biden supported it every step of the way, or at least the person who's actually running the show. She wants to ban fracking. She said that. You can go and look it up. She said that she wanted to ban fracking. That is going to destroy hundreds of thousands of energy jobs all across our country. It's going to empower the very worst and the very most dangerous regimes in the world. This is crazy. There is simply no way that you can sit here and say the policies of Joe Biden have worked, which is to say that we got to kick Kamala Harris out of the Oval Office. Don't give her a chance. Don't give her a chance to run away from the Biden record. The Biden record is the Kamala Harris record, and given what we know about Joe Biden, Kamala Harris probably did a lot more than Joe Biden does over the last 3.5 years. And while we're on the subject of Joe Biden, can anybody just admit that if Joe Biden is not fit to run for president, he ain't fit to serve as president of the United States either? And if Kamala Harris is too blind or too corrupt to admit to the American people that Joe Biden should have never been in there, she's not fit to serve either. We got to get them both out of there. We're going to get President Donald J. Trump back in the White House. They both have to go. It's that simple. It really is. Now look, the thing is, I am a member of a community that has been affected by all these terrible policies. I grew up in a working class family. I grew up in a family where kids said, other people said, that kid's not going to turn out to be anything. I remember when I didn't have any hope for my future, I didn't have any hope for my community, I thought that chaos and instability was going to be the narrative of my life, that there was no future. And now I'm running. Now I'm running as Donald J. Trump's vice president. It turned out pretty well for me. Now, here's the crazy thing. Speaking of President Trump, and by the way, I'll tell you a story. On Monday morning, when President Trump, I guess it was Monday afternoon, early afternoon, President Trump called to offer me the job as his vice presidential running mate, and I didn't answer the phone. Now, it went straight to voicemail or something. I never heard it ring. I was staring at my phone hoping that he would call me, but of course I called him back and we had a nice conversation. You know, talk a lot about this. He put my son on the phone. He talked to my little 7-year-old boy. It was great. But the first thing he said, actually, when I called him back is he said, you know, JD, you just missed a very important phone call. And maybe I should offer it to somebody else. Now, he was messing with me, of course, because here I stand. And I'll tell you something else about President Trump, and I want to get to the fact that the media lies about him. And so many people don't realize the real President Trump. And here's the real President Trump. President Trump called me right before my RNC convention speech on Wednesday. It was a great time, and didn't my wife do such a good job? I was so proud of her for introducing me. But he called me and he said, JD, you're going to do a great job. It was just a nice pep talk. He said, don't worry about anything. You're going to do great. And then I said, sir, I agree with you. I think I am going to do a good job, but it's too late now. No takebacks. We've already gotten here. And the crazy thing is the media says that that guy is mean-spirited. They say that he is a threat to democracy. But first of all, we all saw the President Trump the media doesn't want you to see when he took an assassin's bullet, stood up a minute later, raised his fists in the air and said, fight, fight, fight. That's the President Trump I know, the guy who stood in defiance of an assassin's bullet and then just a few moments later called for national calm and unity. And they say that he's mean-spirited. That's not the Donald Trump I know. That's not the Donald Trump that any of us in this room know. They also say that he's a threat to democracy, but if I recall, Donald Trump won the Republican primary in 2016, won the election, and won another Republican primary just a few months ago. Democrats are the ones who want to throw out 14 million ballots and not elect Kamala Harris, but select Kamala Harris. With a bunch of billionaires and Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi making the decision instead of Democrat voters, it's disgraceful, and that's the threat to American democracy. That corruption and that broken process. Now, I'm obviously not a Democrat primary voter, and I imagine none of you are either. But if you are, welcome. Republican Party's happy to have you. But if you are a Democrat primary voter, they don't give a damn about you because they don't give a damn who you voted for. If you are a Democrat and you look at this corrupt process, I invite you to the Republican Party. We want to make America great again. We believe in elections. We believe in persuading voters, not lying to them for 3.5 years and then doing a switcheroo. It really doesn't matter who we run against, let's be honest, because every Democrat in leadership has supported these broken policies, and every last Democrat in leadership lied about Joe Biden's fitness for the office, about his mental competency, about whether he could basically function and do the job. And aside from that, every last Democrat contender wants open borders, more legal immigration. They want more trade giveaways, and they supported them from the very beginning. They want more endless wars and more criminals on the streets. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a crappy platform, whoever they put as the figurehead of the Democratic Party. Now, I want to say something about our likely opponent, Kamala Harris, because you know, she said a couple of days ago that I showed no loyalty to the United States, that I have no loyalty to the United States. Well, you know, I don't know Kamala. I served in the United States Marine Corps, and I built a business. What the hell have you done other than collect a government check for the past 20 years? But I want to say, my friends, whether it's Kamala Harris or anybody else, it's the same Democrat machine. It's the same lies and corruption. It is the same broken promises, inflation crisis, border crisis. We don't need any of it. We need President Donald J. Trump back in the White House. Now, before we keep going, I want to take a moment to thank some of the outstanding Republican leaders that we have with us today, Republicans who I think are going to turn Virginia red in the coming decade, and we're so grateful to have them. You guys, of course, have a great governor in Glenn Youngkin. I understand he's working. He's working on behalf of the state, couldn't join us today, but we do have Attorney General Jason Miyares. Thank you so much for being here, Jason. Thanks for your great service. We've got Congressman Morgan Griffith. Where's Morgan at? There you are, Morgan. Thank you, man. Now we've got former Congressman Virgil Good and Bob Goodlad. There they are right here. Great. Thank you, guys. A guy I've gotten to know a little bit, an incredibly special veteran of our armed forces, a true patriot, and the next senator from the state of Virginia, Hung Cao. Thank you, Hung. Now, these are great candidates, and of course, we're joined by members of the General Assembly and state and local officials who are doing fantastic work on behalf of this Commonwealth, and like I said, they're going to help turn Virginia red. Now, for those of you who don't know me, let me just give you a little bit of background on where I come from and who I am. I'm a former Marine. Hoorah. Semper Fi. I graduated from The Ohio State University and Yale Law School. I started a business to create jobs in places like the one that I grew up in, places that have been left behind by Washington's leadership, but still have a lot of grit, a lot of determination, and a lot of opportunity if we could stop screwing up in Washington, D.C. Now, I was raised by my working class grandmother. I called her Mamaw. Do we have any other Mamaws in the room right now? We're in Appalachia, right? We got a lot of Mamaws. I just want to say to all of you, thank you for everything that you do, especially those who are raising the Mamaws and Papaws, the grandparents, the aunts and the uncles that are raising kids they didn't expect to raise. Because of this terrible opioid problem, trust me, it's appreciated. We love you and we're grateful to you. God bless you. Now, my mamaw raised me because my mom struggled with addiction, opioid addiction, for a big chunk of my early life. Now, mamaw was a tough old bird. She was a very devout Christian and a very thoughtful Christian, but she also loved the F word. She was a woman of contradiction. She could make a sailor blush, I'm not kidding you. She was my guardian angel in so many ways, and thanks to her, I had a chance to live the American dream. And if there's anything that President Trump's leadership is about, it is about ensuring that your kids have access to the American dream, that your kids have access to the incredible opportunity of this country. Now, for years, Washington insiders in both parties have sold out places like Middletown, Ohio, like Radford, Virginia. Both parties shipped millions of good manufacturing jobs overseas. They decided that we didn't need to make anything in America again. And now we're way too dependent on the communist Chinese to make the critical things that we need, from our weapons of war to the drugs that we put into the bodies of our children. You know, 95% of the ibuprofen in this country is manufactured in China. Guess where the majority of the antibiotics that we put into the bodies of our children are made? In China. That was a decision, ladies and gentlemen, by broken leadership that decided we didn't need to make anything in this country again. President Trump has a different vision. Let's make more things in America. Let's make our own country self-reliant, and let's do it with American workers making good wages. Isn't that simple? Now, the left calls President Trump and his supporters radicals. But what's radical about thinking that we should make more of our own products in Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania? There's nothing radical about that. It's common sense. And under President Trump's leadership, my friends, we're going to change some things around, and you're going to see more and more products stamped with that beautiful logo, made in the USA. It's time. Now, there's nothing